We'll discuss today the famous question the commentators, the Mefarshim, have, and it's not limited to Bikor Cholim, the mitzvah of visiting the sick, but we'll focus on this one today. But it applies in general to many other mitzvahs, and that is, why don't we make a bracha before we visit the sick? Before we do the mitzvah Bikor Cholim, why don't we make a blessing beforehand? And in fact, it's a discussion in the Rishonim, in the earlier commentators as well as the later ones. What is the nature of the mitzvah of Bikor Cholim? Is it a biblical mitzvah? Is it a rabbinical mitzvah? Is it a super mitzvah that it's not even, it's one of the foundations, Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah? So minimally it's a rabbinical mitzvah, quite possibly even a biblical mitzvah. So we have a general rule. The Gemara tells us in Psachim, before you do a mitzvah, you make a bracha over l'asiyasan. You first do the bracha, then you do the mitzvah as a general rule. And the Gemara gets into the context of la or al. If you do the mitzvah before, it's la. If you're going to do the mitzvah afterwards, it's al. Like al netila shadayim. When your hands are dirty, you can't make the bracha, so you make the bracha afterwards. By the fourth species, because the Gemara says, mida'ag bei nafrei, once you pick it up, you fulfill the mitzvah. So the Gemara says we make al netila sula because of that reason. And the classic example is a ger, is a convert. They obviously can't make the bracha before the mikvah because they're not Jewish yet. Hence they have to make the bracha afterwards. So the question is, why no bracha on the mitzvah of Bikor Cholim? So there's a famous answer from the Or Zarua in Siman Kuf Mem. I'll quote from the Or Zarua, then we'll discuss it. Kol mitzvah shel olam chaya behem, any mitzvah which is continuous, the ein itim lipatia mehem, and there's no time for exemption, kagon, like other examples, to believe in God, or Bikor Cholim, visiting the sick, as well as other mitzvahs, nichum avelem, ein sharach levarach leim, you don't make a bracha if it's a continuous mitzvah. Why? Ki olam chaya behem ein shayach behem chivuv. You don't have the love. Part of it, you make a bracha, the excitement. You're about to do a mitzvah. You're very happy. So something that it's all the time, it's hard to get excited for, or at least overly excited for. You have to pace yourself. And that's what he writes, that because any continuous mitzvah, you don't make a bracha on, because to make a bracha, it has to be excitement. Not as much, I guess, as a shechiyanu, which requires even more excitement. But a regular bracha, at least you have to have some chiv of cherish and of love in the mitzvah. The concern is if it's all the time, you ain't going to be feeling it. Not that you don't have to do it, but we're not going to make a bracha on it. So is that true? Because the mitzvah comes to mind that there's an obligation, and we do make a bracha. That's the bracha of Birchas HaTorah. The bracha of the blessing you have to make before you learn Torah. And I'm not talking about the bracha when you get called up to the Torah on a Monday, Thursday, or Shabbos. I mean every morning. Both men and women are obligated in making the Birchas HaTorah, Asok V'Direi Torah, Arevna, and Ashabach Abano. So what do you mean? That's a continuous mitzvah, and you do make a bracha. So perhaps one could distinguish. We're talking about a Birchas HaMitzvah here. A bracha before a mitzvah. There's a discussion, what is the nature of the bracha of Birchas HaTorah? Maybe you could argue, as some do, as the Ramban writes, it's a Bircha Shevach V'Hodah. It's a bracha of thanks, and to thanking God for giving us the Torah. So that's not a bracha on the Ma'isa Mitzvah, on the act of learning, but it's on the fact that Klal was given the Torah. So maybe then, even though it's a Chiyuv Olam, you can make a bracha, but a regular, but other mitzvahs not. Or perhaps one can make a distinction, because the Or Zarua says, Ve'in shayach behem chivuv. You're not going to have that love, that desire. So we have a principle, mitzvahs lav lahanos nindu, that if someone takes a vow, I'm not going to get benefit from Reuven, and then he wants to borrow Reuven's fourth species, or borrow his tefillin, so then those point out that it's permitted, because mitzvahs lav lahanos nindu, that mitzvahs aren't for your benefit, and therefore, even if you took a neder not to get hana, a vow not to get benefit, it's okay. However, if one takes a neder not to get benefit from Reuven, and he wants to borrow his sefer, his book, or he wants to come to his shir, so then he's not allowed to. Mitzvahs lav lahanos ninu. So that's what the Taz writes, the Iglay Tal, in his famous introduction. No, Talmud Torah lahanos ninu. Talmud Torah is different. All other mitzvahs you do fundamentally, kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe. God did. Of course you do it by Torah as well. But in order to be successful in learning, you have to have the chiyuv. It has to be something you're enjoying. And that's why perhaps maybe Birkas HaTorah, even though it's continuous, but since it's lahanos ninu, so we're not concerned. But by other mitzvahs we are, or perhaps that Birkas HaMitzvah isn't a Birkas HaMitzvah, it's a Birkas Shevach Valda. Either way, however we're going to learn, the bottom line is, the Ozu were right, there is no bracha on Bikur Chola because that's a continuous mitzvah. There's another famous answer from the Tshuvas HaRashba, different ways of learning the Rashba. But I'll quote again from the Rashba, then we'll discuss it. Kol mitzvah shetchuya ba b'yad acherim. Any mitzvah that's dependent on someone else, and then the person won't, if it's dependent on someone else, it's out of your control. Ein mevarchen Allah. Kagon, bikor cholim, like bikor cholim visiting the sick. Choshishin shachol lo yikabo baratzon, the chol is not going to want you. The chol mitzvah she'efshel l'me'ekra, and any mitzvah that can be uprooted because the other person doesn't want to participate, it's a no-go. So therefore that's what the klal of the Rashba is, that we don't make a bracha on any mitzvah that's totally b'das acher, is dependent on somebody else. So for instance, the classical case of the Rashba is tzedakah. So let's say you knock on someone's door, and you ask them for money, and they're a good person, they want to give tzedakah, and then all of a sudden, you want to, wait a minute, $10? Are you kidding me? I'm only taking $100 or $1,000, so the ani doesn't take it. So the concern is it'll be a bracha levatol, it'll be a blessing in vain. Like we have similarly yisod, it's a machlokas rishonim. What is the nature of the mitzvah of Birkas Eresin? The bracha, is kedushin a mitzvah not? Getting married. Is it just a preparation stage so you can have children? Or no, inherently there's a mitzvah of kedushin independent of kids. So that's a discussion among the Rishonim. So the Rambam holds it's a Birkas HaMitzvah because there's a mitzvah of kedushin. Other Rishonim, the Rosh holds no, it's a bracha on the institution of marriage, but it's not. And the Ravid seems to take a middle ground. He says, like the Rambam, it's a Birkas HaMitzvah, but the Rambam writes, just like all other Birkas HaMitzvah, first you make the bracha, then you do the mitzvah, so too by Kedushin. The Ravid says, no, by Kedushin you make the bracha afterwards. So the question is, what's in the Ravid? Bishlam, according to the Rambam, if you assume it's a Birkas HaMitzvah, so you're making a bracha beforehand. And according to the Rosh, you can make it afterwards on the institution of marriage. But according to the Ravid, it's a Birkas HaMitzvah, why make the bracha afterwards? So that's what the Ravid points out, is because the concern is maybe the woman won't accept the Kedushin. Since it's a mitzvah which is totally on someone else, hence you make the bracha afterwards, not before. But either way, that's the yisod of the Rashba. And since by Bikar Cholim, the person might not want to take a visitor, or he might not want you to come in, whatever the case may be, hence we don't make a bracha on the mitzvah of Bikur Cholam. That's the second answer. Another answer brought down in the name of the Binyamin Zev and others are the Rokeach. Kol mitzvah shagam umas ha'olam mekaymin mitzad ha'seichel. Any mitzvah that we do, which is a mitzvah sichla, it's a common sense mitzvah, it's not just limited to Jews, but even non-Jews, even Gentiles do it. Ein ano mevarchen aleh. We don't make a bracha on it because the Eyev Shar Levarach Asher Kedisharav Mitzosav V'Tzivano. We can't make the bracha V'Tzivano because it's not recognizable that it's owing on us. The Gam Hamosin came and he says, so too by Bikar Cholim, they also, everyone visits the sick, it's a universal thing to do, and therefore he says no bracha. In fact, some might even, that's what he says, some might argue the opposite, that on a mitzvah sichlis, on a mitzvah which is just based on common sense and seichel and logic, that's the time I should be making the bracha the most, because I have to show, when I'm shaking a lulav, why else am I doing it? Because God, it's obvious because God told me to do it. But when I'm doing Bikar Cholim, I'm giving tzedakah, I don't know, I could be doing it because I think it's a good thing to do, not because God commanded me. In fact, that's why by Kivra Ve'eim, it says Kasher Tzivcha Hashem, specifically by honoring one's parents, which is one of the most logical mitzvahs in the world. It says you do it because God commanded you. So one could have argued the opposite, that on a mitzvah sichlis, bedavki, you should make a bracha. However, that's not what the Rokeach and the Binyamin Zev say. They say that you only make a bracha, Asher Kedishon V'Sav B'Tzivano, it's only if it's nicker, if it's recognizable, you're doing a mitzvah. If it's not recognizable to the onlooker that you're doing a mitzvah, so Chazal never instituted a bracha. So that's the third explanation. We had that the Or Zarua, that a continuous mitzvah, you don't have the chiva, so therefore no bracha. We had the Rashba, it's dependent on others, and we had the Binyamin Zev, the Rokeach, any mitzvah sichlis. Another explanation brought down, called mitzvah, Shabbat Yidei Kilkula, Ein Mevarchin Aleha. Any mitzvah that comes about because of a potential negative, Kagon, Kfura Yidei Shem, it's a mitzvah of Kura because someone died. V'chai bahem, the goal is to live, albeit it's true everyone has to die at some point, but the goal is to live, and therefore we don't want to have to do funerals, we wish the person would not die. Bikor Cholim, Ayidei Shabbat Chol Adam. Bikor Cholim, it's a great mitzvah, but we wish something even better, that you wouldn't be sick. In fact, I think there's a famous story with the Chafetz Chaim and something in Radin. There was a community event, they were raising money for some hospital, and so I guess the whole community went, Jews, non-Jews, and one of the big machors, one of the big balabatim said, he pointed to some yeshiva guy, he said, I'll donate as many beds as this guy does. So no one knew, what does he mean? This guy, is he a closet millionaire? Is he making fun of the guy? No one really knew. And the Chafetz Chaim got up and said, you can't even come close to this guy. If you do half of what he does, so I was really getting scared that maybe he's going to donate so many beds, I didn't know what I'm in for. He said, this guy learns in yeshiva. His learning is keeping people well, not to get sick. What you want to do is that once they're sick, get them better. He's into preventive medicine, and that's what we all hope for, preventive medicine. That's the ideal, it's always the ideal, but now it seems to be popular to save on the OHIP bills and all these things, so you should eat healthy, exercise, etc. So that's what some point out here. You don't want to make a bracha on something which is perennial. Like we see the Gemara tells us in Megillah, Ein mafsikin b'kolos, we don't break up the tochacha, the portion of the rebuke, because we don't want you having to conclude a new bracha, conclude the old bracha, and then make a new bracha. So therefore, what we do is we don't break it up. So same thing here. We don't want to be mafsik in the middle. We don't want it to be mafsik on a. We don't want to make a bracha. How does it look? You walk in, the person's dying. Oh, great, good to see you, Baruch. I tell you, so excited. What a great mitzvah I'm doing. It looks like you're happy that the person's dead. In fact, that's why there's a halacha. It's a discussion in the Gemara. And could you visit a soneh? Are you allowed to go and do bikar cholam on a soneh, on someone you hate or it's not a friend? So some point out, no, you can't, because it looks like you're gloating that your enemy is sick and he's dying. So similarly here, even if he's your friend, but to make a bracha on it, this doesn't sound right. You're so excited, he's sick, and you make a 20-minute bracha, it's just not right. So therefore, Chazal never instituted a bracha. This to conclude with the Shitas HaRambam. The Rambam in general says Chazal only instituted brachas on mitzvahs ben adam lamakom, between man and God, not mitzvahs ben adam l'chavero. Why? Because to give a mashal, imagine someone comes to your house, a poor person looking for food, starving, and of course you say, great, hold on, let me go to the kitchen and get some food ready. You're about to give him the food, you say, wait, Baruch atah Hashem. Okay. And the time you finish the bracha, the person drops dead or faints. So obviously Chazal did not institute a bracha when it's going to interfere with the purpose of the mitzvah. The purpose of the mitzvah is to take care of the chola. If by making a bracha it's going to interfere with those needs or force you to wait on doing it, that's why we don't make a bracha. So to summarize, we have the Zarua, that something which is continuous, you don't make a bracha on Birkas HaTorah, either because of it's not a Birkas HaMitzvah, or perhaps it is, but it's a special mitzvah with Torah, it is lahana, and therefore there should always be chiyuv when you're learning. A2, we discussed the Rashba, something which is dependent on someone else, like tzedakah, so bikar choli might not want you, hence no bracha. Then we had mitzvah sichlis, any logical mitzvah, and bikar cholim is one you don't make a bracha on, because everyone does it. You only make a bracha on something which is recognizable inherently that you're doing a mitzvah. Number 4 is we have that something which is a kilko, burying someone, visiting the sick. It's a great mitzvah, but we wish the idea was they weren't sick or they weren't dying, and therefore we don't make a bracha on prinios. And as the Rambam gives us a general rule, we don't make a bracha on mitzvahs be'am ha'chaveiro because it defeats the whole purpose. The whole purpose of the mitzvah is to help out the needy, and by making a bracha you'll be taking away from the immediate needs of the ani, of the poor person or the chola.